Hi, on this video we will be doing an overview on how to consume geospatial data within the ArcGIS platform. We will be mainly focusing on the living atlas of the world, which is the main repository of resources that we are providing to you as a developer. It contains petabytes of geospatial information coming from different providers. And that data is split among different categories, as we will see, but what we want to focus more is on the data types that support or the data services that support these layers. They are quite important for you to know in order to get the most out of it. Feature layers are the more popular one, but there are other that are quite frequent and important. So we will focus on these four. But let's jump to the interface of the Living Atlas and see how it works. Here we are in livingatlas.arcgis.com on the Browse tab, and here we can filter by category and subcategory. We can filter by the type of resource or the item type. I would use item as an analogy also of resource. I will filter by layer type, which is the one that we care the most. You can use all the other resources as source of inspiration to see what can be done with these kind of layers, and you can also have access to some artificial intelligence trained models and other tools. Okay, here when we won't have time to go through many of these layers, but I want to point out how this works. So clicking on the title or the thumbnail, you will be able to see an item description page or a layer description page where some details about the layer itself are included. Like, for example, in this case, this is a real-time layer. So you can have access to how often this layer is being updated. In this case, also the amount of data it has, it's saying that it contains thermal hotspots from fire and fire activity from the last 7 days. Here you can go to the data tab and see that it contains 1 million rows, more than 1 million rows of thermal activity. We can also go to the visualization, but I will skip that part for now. And one important thing, well, don't care too much about the size in here, because this means that the data itself is using a different storage than the one on arcgis.com. So don't worry about that. In this case, this data is being provided by NASA, and you can take the URL of this service from here and use it on your application. Just realize that this ends up on feature server. Based on the item type, many times we will see different URLs. That give us a clue on sometimes on what item type we are consuming, if you are not aware of that beforehand. You can also find some terms of use at the bottom of each item page. And there are also other data sources coming, for example, from OpenStreetMap. We are getting data from this open data platform. It's crowdsourced data, as probably you know. And we are taking data on these layers and split it on different parts of the world. This is because if we cannot provide a layer, or it's easier for our teams to manage the data this way. So you can go in here also, like this is a feature layer. You can see, like in this case, we have 2 million points of amenities, and for amenities we mean on the OpenStreetMap terminology, an amenity could be a school, a toilet, public toilet, restaurants, fast foods, restaurants. Well, you can go to the wiki of the OpenStreetMap and get a better understanding on what amenities are. Here you have a description on this layer, as always. And this is a different type of layer. Realize that on this case, this Earth at Night layer is a tile layer. And compared to the feature layer we were seeing before, we don't have the data and visualization tab provided in here. This is because we cannot query individual features, rows from this dataset. This is, in this case, a raster tile layer, which means this is a collection of PNGs that can be used as a background for our map. The next layer type is another tile layer, but notice that there is one difference between the previous one and this one. This one doesn't have the view style option. Why is that? Well, I just wanted to point out that in this case, if I copy the URL in here, I see this is a map server. But if I go to this one and I take the URL from here, you will see this is a vector tile server. So both are tile layers, sorry, but they are different type of tile layers. And that's, I don't want you to be confused when you are browsing the data and see these kind of things. So just keep that in mind. We will explain soon what that means. Here we have a world traffic service. This is a layer which can display which is the congestion on each road worldwide. It has a pretty big coverage coming from the data provider is here, as you can see in the description. This is a pretty useful layer, and we will see that in this case we are able to display the image. We are not able to query the roads, but we will be able to query some information, like the incidents, because this type of layer can contain images, but at the same time raw data. And the last item type or layer type I wanted to talk about is the imagery layer. This is the most advanced layers, and it's very powerful. In this case, this Sentinel layer is satellite imagery that contains multispectral and multitemporal data. That means it is a huge data set. It can take around, I think it is like 1 petabyte of information, just this layer. It can be used for a lot of use cases on environmental issues, some emergency response issues. So if you want to learn more about this, leave a comment leave a comment on the video. But we will be adding resources to the description to explain more in detail what these layers are and how to work with them. Okay, a quick pause to see the theory on these layers. So let me spend some time explaining what a tile layer is. A tile layer is a type of layer that stores the information using this concept of splitting the data on grids. So depending on each level of the zoom, we will be generating tiles. And tiles can be raster, and with raster I mean PNG files with all the information blended on a picture, or it could be vector tiles, which are binary formats with the raw data on it that we can use afterwards to style and do some things on that. That's why tile layers doesn't offer the possibility to query the data behind it, because we don't have a database where we can say, okay, give me the data of this portion and draw a shape and take the data from there, or click on an element and retrieve. This is not the layer type you will use to do that. So this format this idea of tiles has been used for many companies, and there are different formats that you can use, like the tile map service, which use the X, Y, and Z parameters to refer the XY of the tile and the Z for the zoom level, as you see here. we are splitting this grid on this, this cell on this bigger grid, and again, this cell on this grid. This way we are splitting the information and we are able to serve the data on clients. Imagine, because how much it can take, because satellite maps, for example, with 18 zoom levels can take up to 20 terabytes of information. The only way to serve that in an efficient way and reduce the load times and everything, it's doing something like this. If we are talking about different layer data, that it's not a picture that where we need a value on X pixel, like a roadmap where we can use geometries to save that information, we can use vector tile layers, and that save a huge amount of storage. This kind of base maps with 18 zoom levels can take, compared to the 20 terabytes of a satellite imagery, can take 13 gigabytes. And also for you to know, we can also use drone imagery or store drone imagery on tile layers, or actually any kind of data that we want to convert on tiles. We can do that. So we will see that afterwards. Feature layers. Feature layers are, you can compare feature layers to a relational database, a spatial relational database stored in the cloud. Like, if you are familiar with the GeoJSON or KML or GPX files, you can store this raw data on a feature layer on this database, and eventually what you have is one geometry per row on your layer, with the attributes, with the information in form of attributes or fields. There are also different service types. We can have like the Esri feature layers, but there are also the web feature service. We can consume all these service type I'm mentioning on the platform. But the main purpose of having this and using this layer normally is to serve data that we want to edit quite often, not like the tile layers. The tiles normally are take a lot of time to generate, so we don't want to generate dynamic data in form of tiles. We will probably want to use feature layers for that. To be able to access query, we can send spatial queries to a feature layer. So this way we can have like live alerts, building footprints, because it's not only about editing the data, it's also about being able to style the data client side, being able to filter the data client side. So that's quite important also in order to improve the user experience when we are building our applications. At the end, what these feature layers are going to provide us is a JSON object with the information. For example, in this case, we see the information from the Texas county, Texas state in here, in form of, we have the geometry with the coordinates. I have collapsed the geometry, and here are the properties, which are the fields on this row. The map image layers are something, I would say, between tile layers and feature layers. Both feature layers and map image layers can contain sublayers, but in this case, the map image layers can combine raster with vector in the same endpoint. That means, as you can see on this imaging, the traffic service, the World Traffic Maps layer, is providing an image with all the roads and the congestion. It's being requested as a one request, and it's providing a PNG with the whole canvas on it. At the same time, on the sublayers, we have the table of attributes for all the incidents. This way we can click on top of the layer and get some information from the incidents. This is the way this layer was built because the provider wanted to do so. He didn't want to give like the raw data on each road, for example. And that's something you as a developer or a data provider can define. Normally, these layers are used to display large data set, but also to protect some data and also to save some time for the client. Because imagine you don't have a powerful client. You need to display a lot of data on a mobile device. You might want to use a raster instead of displaying all these, drawing all these features on the device if it's not powerful enough. So there are a lot of consideration to decide which layer to use. I just want to give you a quick overview on which are these. And the imagery layers are the most advanced ones. Again, different service types. This to serve raster, but this is different raster. This is not a PNG. This is a raster file in a binary format that we can query. We will be able to also recover the PNG, but we can filter, like we will see in this GIF, we can filter the data, the raw data, and filter pixel by pixel, for example, change the temperature with a slider and change the symbology of the styling. This is a very common layer type when we are talking about environmental things like weather data, land cover, vegetation index, which is how healthy the vegetation is, the humidity, elevation data. This is normally continuous data that needs to be pixel by pixel. It is not discrete data, and normally it's space-time varying. That's why it's so big. Now let's jump to some sample codes and see how to consume that. I highly recommend you to go to the documentation and the mapping API and services. Under the data hosting, you have some pages explaining more in detail the tile layers and the vector layers and the feature layers. Sorry, the two first type we have been talking about, the two different type layers and the feature layer. But we don't have here a page for the map image layer and the imagery layer, so we will jump directly to the sample codes on the JavaScript API, which is the simple way I have to show you how it works, but you can find samples on any API you want. Just go to the sample codes. Here on the layer menu, you can see that this is split in here. Like we have the feature layer, we have some samples in here. As I said, there are many more layer types I don't have time to talk about, and they are not as important as these ones. So just to take you in consideration. Here, the raster layer, it's talking about the imagery layer. So the latest one we have seen. Here we have the map image layer examples, and here we have the vector tile layer, and within the other tile layers, we will find other tile layers. Jumping directly to one sample code. So this is the Esri tile layer. I want you to see how I'm going to load this Earth at night map really quick. So I'm going here, I'm loading the tile layer module, and I just need to replace the URL from here with a new one and rerun the code sample to see this tile layer being loaded. If I open the network tab, you will see how this tile layer is being served as PNGs. As you can see here, the URL include the three parameters, the X, Y, and zoom level behind the scene. We don't need to worry about that. The API takes care of everything. Here we have a different example. We are going to see a vector tile. You remember I was saying that we have all the data on a binary format and we can access the data somehow. We cannot query, but we can style it, right? Do you remember we have that option? So here I'm changing the style of that layer. Here you can see the code, and this is the way it's being loading this style. Now I'm going to replace this style with the grocery stores. Oh, sorry, I don't have the grocery stores. I will skip that. But look for the grocery store here and replace the URL. You will find that the vector layer is being loaded behind the scenes. And what I wanted to show actually is more than that was that when I zoom in here, instead of recovering PNG files, I am recovering the protocol buffers. So this is the binary format I was mentioning before. So these are the tiles on a different format. On this case, this is another tile layer. This is a tile layer that it's not being served by Esri. So I just wanted to point out that you can consume data from other data providers, not only from the Living Atlas, of course. Here is the way you are passing the 3 parameters to the service. This way you can load this stamen base map on this 3D thing. About feature layers, here you have another cool, simple example. We can go and load copy the URL from the OpenStreetMap amenities and replace that in here. As you can notice here, it ends up on 0. If I don't say anything, it will take the 0, which is the first layer on this service. If I want, I can add it. As you notice in here, it has included a couple of points, which are, I think they are coffee shops because of the icon. I could style this, but I won't do that on this video. And the last 2 examples are one in-map image layer. If you notice in here, it looks like a feature layer, but it is not. If I go to a network tab, you will see that it is exporting a PNG file being loaded in here, but at the same time, I'm able to query and change this layer based on some parameters. That's something I was trying to explain before. This is a mix between feature and raster, right? In this case, this is the most advanced example. This is a land coverage image where each pixel represents the use of the land of that place of the world. And here we are displaying a really interactive chart on how the coverage is split on this part of the world. So to finish, I wanted to do a quick disclaimer. As I was saying before, there are more service types that can be used. GeoJSON, you can load GeoJSON layers and many other layers. So if you need some help with that, please go to the documentation. If you still need more help, write a comment and we will add more resources to the description. On the Living Atlas, you will find 3 different types of layers. Most of them are free to use and doesn't require authentication. Some of them require authentication and some of them are paid per use. It's a really small amount of money and you have free credits with your developer account. So just take a look and ask anything you need to ask. You have all the pricing on the developer page. And some common question is, can all the data be downloaded? Well, no, as you can imagine, the tile layers cannot be easily downloaded, and some of them can't be because of other reasons. So please go to the deployment chapter and read the content and data page there. I will be covering this, or we will be covering this on different resources, but there are tons of data sources. We have been talking about the Living Atlas, but don't hesitate on ask anything you need, or And feel free to upload anything you need to the platform. We support, I would say, almost any type of data within ArcGIS platform. So look on open data portals near to you, because they normally have very good data and local data that we could probably not provide easily. So use the layers you have there to enrich your application. And if you need anything else, do not hesitate on reaching to us. And thank you, and enjoying the ArcGIS platform and all the geospatial data you have in your hands to do some amazing application. Thank you.